Howdy folks, Jamboree here. While I never read the book, I used to watch Matilda constantly on VHS. I was obsessed with it, I loved it. But now it's time for me to take off my nostalgia goggles and look at this movie fairly as a grown-up internet reviewer. Matilda is a fantasy comedy about a little girl called Matilda, who lives with her abusive and negligent family. To make up for the lack of parenting in her life, Matilda educates herself by reading books from the local library, and she becomes a very mature, clever girl for her age. One day Matilda joins a prep school, run by the violently mean principal Miss Trunchbull, but it's not all bad because her schoolmates are nice and her teacher Miss Honey is very lovely. While dealing with the horrible cruelty around her, Matilda ends up tapping into a special part of her remarkable brain and begins to develop the power to control things with her mind. How will she use her newfound magical gift? I think the reason why this movie has such a big impact on kids is because it both empowers them and teaches them valuable constructive lessons. It gives them the opportunity to fantasize about having telekinetic powers, but it also encourages them to read, educate themselves, and stand up for what's right. I guess this is why the film resonates with many adults, especially those who grew up with it as children. Its themes can be applied to a grown-up perspective. You see, we live in a modern society where stupidity is exploited to uncomfortable degrees, evil people are in powerful positions, and technology dominates our everyday lives. A film that celebrates the power of reading and the benefits of self-education, while criticising intellectual disinterest and corrupt power, is certainly going to tap into the hearts and minds of mature, intelligent adults, who are growing tired of the world's ignorance and crookedness. This is what makes Matilda so timeless. Its themes and ideas are fluid enough to appeal to older generations too. Matilda herself is a wonderful character. She's very bright and clever, but she also has a witty sense of humour, and she can be very brave. She's not perfect though, she does have the habit of being ambitiously reckless, which can put herself and others in danger. However, I think this flaw adds some edge and cheeky personality to her, making her more than just a smart bookworm. Many people also feel like Matilda, that feeling of being the only intellectually curious individual in the world full of idiots and bullies, outcasted because you refuse to abandon common sense and values. This is what makes Matilda so relatable as a character. Actress Mara Wilson is fantastic as Matilda too. She was one of those rare child performers who could actually act. She didn't obnoxiously yell her lines or look misdirected. She used understated and subtle acting choices to capture the maturity of Matilda.
Dinner time is family time. What is this trash you're reading?
It's not trash, Daddy. It's lovely. It's called Moby Dick by Herman Melville.
Moby what? This is filth. Trash. Here.
That's not mine. It's a library book.
Trash.
I also like how Matilda has to actually train herself to use her powers, to understand them and work out how they function. Because she's been practicing, it makes it fully believable that she's finally mastered her powers so that she can take down the Trunchbull. Speaking of the Trunchbull, talk about a children's movie villain. Hell yeah! Miss Trunchbull is one of the major reasons why people remember this movie so much. She's an incredibly fun and entertaining antagonist. She's both insanely cartoony and terrifyingly cruel at the same time. Actress Pam Ferris is amazing as the Trunchbull, immersing herself entirely in the role, through a truly psychotic and wild performance that perfectly fits the over-the-top character.
What? Sell me a lemon? You're heading for the chokey, young lady.
Chokey?
Teach you a lesson?
What lesson?
You and your father think you can make a fool out of me.
My father?
The guy with a stupid haircut.
I'm nothing like my father.
You're the spitting image. The apple never rots far from the tree.
You want to know what makes Pam's performance so credible and impressive? Well, I'm going to show you something. This is the real Pam Ferris.
The Princess Royal Trust for Carers is there to help them bear that responsibility, but they can't continue to do so without your help. Please donate by going to carers.org or by calling 0844 800 4361.
That's right, I'm not joking. That was Pam Ferris hosting a charity ad. That's right, that was Miss Trunchbull without makeup and out of character. Pam Ferris is an underrated actress, seriously. So, a common complaint about this film is that it's way too mean-spirited, and I can see why this would put people off, especially those who don't want to see a kids movie full of child cruelty, parental neglect, and other dark elements. However, I think it's important for children's films to address these things. It shines a light on less than perfect families, showing that they exist and giving less privileged kids a film to resonate with. The film isn't entirely mean though, too. Matilda and Miss Honey do have a very sweet relationship. It's lovely watching them bond as Matilda finds her mother figure and Miss Honey becomes determined to make Matilda feel appreciated and loved. Behind all the cruelty and madness, there's a ray of shining hope in this film.
You were born into a family that doesn't always appreciate you. But one day, things are going to be very different.
Now, while Matilda does hold a special place in my childhood, I'm not going to insist that this movie is 100% perfect and flawless. Just because I personally grew up with it doesn't mean that it's sacred and untouchable. That's not exactly fair criticism, is it now? So, let's be objective. I'm going to take off my rose-tinted glasses and admit that there are some aspects of Matilda that could be criticised. First of all, director Danny DeVito's decision to cast himself as Matilda's malicious father and the sympathetic narrator is very distracting. It's like if Toy Story was completely narrated by the voice actor for Sid. I can't shake off how the sweet narrator sounds a lot like the horrible dad. Surely DeVito could have cast someone else to narrate it.
The Wormwoods were so wrapped up in their own silly lives that they barely noticed they had a daughter. Had they paid any attention to her at all, they'd have realized she was a rather extraordinary child. From now on, this family does exactly what I say, exactly when I say it.
Here's your hat, Harry.
And right now, we are eating dinner and watching TV.
Secondly, I do really struggle to believe that Miss Trunchbull was able to get away with so much. It's kind of far-fetched to assume that none of the kids' parents believed their stories about Trunchbull, or that no authorities believed any of the teachers if they reported her child cruelty. I know this is a movie about a girl with magic powers, but it still has one foot grounded in reality. A reality where Matilda's dad's suspicious activities are being strictly observed by cops. This aspect of the film does kind of itch the back of my mind and makes the story feel a little forced. It's as if the Trunchbull has only gotten away with her crimes because the film really wants the kids to be the ones to take her down, which is pretty cool and adds to the film's empowering elements, but at the same time, that's contrived storytelling. I really don't want this aspect to bother me, but it does in a small way. Thirdly, I will admit that the film doesn't give enough attention to the other child characters. I know this is Matilda's film and she is remarkable enough to be the focus, but it ends up making the other child characters seem ignored and underdeveloped, just because they don't have magic powers. I feel like the only purpose of the other children is to serve as the Trunchbull's victims or provide exposition on the school for Matilda, thus making them less interesting and developed. There's a cute scene where Matilda hangs out with some kids in a forest, and I do wish that there were more scenes like this, to further develop Matilda's relationship with the other children and give them more purpose, agency and personality. Sure, Matilda has a friendship with her classmate Lavender, but they don't share enough scenes together. Apparently the book gives more attention to the rest of the children, and I really wish the film did too. Despite these problems that I have with the film, I still really like Matilda. It's an enjoyable, charming, entertaining and enchanting movie that celebrates intellect and justice, while also providing a relatable protagonist and a crazy fun villain. I'm going to give Matilda 4 1/4 book strawberries out of 5, and if you enjoyed such titles as The Witches or A Simple Wish, then I think you might like Matilda. I've been Jambrique and I hope you enjoyed my review. If you did, then I encourage you to like, subscribe and share. I'd also really appreciate it if you could support me on my Patreon. In the next episode of Jam Bites, I'm going to review Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Cheerio, folks.